I've always felt like there was something wrong with me, especially when it comes to a loved one passing. And with the world of social media, where people will be publicly sharing their grieving moments. And when I remember, or even if I am going through a mourning period, I wouldn't be feeling like that. So I had labeled myself as maybe a person who's not compassionate and all of that. But today I want us to dive deeper into understanding maybe you are also like me who does not feel what other people feel when it comes to a passing of a loved one. So let's dive deeper into it. Hello there, my name is Coach Malebo. I am a trauma-informed life and relationship coach, and over a period of 11 years, I've not only dedicated my life, but also my spiritual gift to helping people heal deeper and create the life of meaning, of purpose, and also of alignment. If you are here for the very first time, please remember to click on the subscribe button and let us grow this community together. But also, if you are a returning subscriber, thank you for always showing up and helping me grow this channel. I have to make a disclaimer that it's school holidays and I'm a mother, so you can imagine I've got a lot of kids in the house, so you might hear a background noise because they don't know that I'm recording anyway, right? But today I want us to dive deeper into grief and understand what should we be feeling, and is there something wrong with us who are not feeling the way other people are feeling, right? So in 2017 was the very first time that I have lost somebody very close to my heart, which was my father. And this happened after getting married, and a year ago, 2 years ago, after getting married, there was a process where we needed to go to Zimbabwe to go and be introduced to my in-laws and all of those type of things. And my dad did not want to be a part of it, which I felt like, if you're my dad, why don't you want to be a part of it? He actually said my brother would be involved in that, but I just didn't know that maybe he was feeling like I'm not going to be there anyway, And it was 2 weeks before that I spoke to him about this, and I was a bit angry at him that why are you not involved in this whole thing? Why are you feeling like you want to exclude yourself in this whole thing and all of that? And that was the last time I spoke to my father. And when I dropped the phone, I felt like crying because of the conversation that we are having. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to talk to him. The anger period. Now you are angry at your father, which is very different than when you are angry at your friend, right? And I called my mom, and my mom tried to, help him understand why I needed him. And because my father has never excluded himself in the things that had to do with his children. So it was a shock to me that he then decided he doesn't want to be a part of this whole thing. My brother would help and all that. But again, I have heard that before people die, they actually know when they are going through that process. So some of us won't understand. Anyway, drop the phone, and 2 weeks later, I get a message from my brother, our eldest brother, on our group, family group WhatsApp, to saying Daddy has been admitted at the hospital. He has got shortness of breath. Now, at that time, I hadn't spoken to my father because of the incident that we had. But something happened to me. I felt something within me, and I couldn't even explain it to anyone. But I knew that my father was not going to come back from the hospital. And if you are going to read my book, you will understand that since from a very young age, I knew when a person was going to give birth and when a person was going to die. And I had been wrestling with this type of feelings because I didn't know where they were coming from. How do I know those things? Because we come into this world and we are taught things, but this one automatically, from if I could remember from the ages of 4, I already knew these things. So I had wrestled with the fact that who taught me all of that, right? So when I got that text from our brother saying that daddy has been hospitalized, I knew that he was not going to come back. And in my book, I also talk about how God speaks to us through feelings. And that is the reason why I don't dismiss feelings. When I am about to do something and I feel a certain way, I know. And it's not feelings of sadness and feeling of anxiety or anything, but it's just a feeling that I cannot even explain. I also, within these feelings in my book, speak about the feelings that I would have when I am about to get money. I know that feeling. I would wake up and I know that this is a feeling of money, but I don't know where the money is going to come from, especially if it's a lot of money, like, 10,000. Well, 10,000 is not a lot of money, but anyway, but you know what I'm trying to explain. So with that feeling, I knew that my father was not going to come back from the hospital. But again, being in a human form, I just decided to have faith. They always say that in the church, that have faith and all of these things that people speak about. So I had faith. Again, I was convincing myself that he is going to come back. And on that day, the very same day when I got a text, on the day around 5 p.m., I had already knocked off. I was at my friend's shop, and I got a phone call that daddy had passed away. And I tried crying, but I wasn't shocked, and that is the thing. When people hear that people have passed away, the natural thing that we would do is to be shocked. The second one is to cry. And I didn't have those two. So I figured, maybe there's something wrong with me. But I tried crying, and I think I tried, but some tears came out. But I wasn't crying because I was hurt. I wasn't crying because daddy had passed away. I was just, it was a performative thing, because you just heard that your father passed away. Why are you not crying, right? And again, it is because most of the time I wrestle, my spirit, soul, wrestle a lot with the logical part of me, right? But maybe not anymore, but before, like 2017, that's almost 9 years ago, right? So I was not at the point where I am with my spiritual gift and being spiritually inclined. So daddy came on Friday. We were preparing for his death. He came on Friday. He, when they bring the body to the house and all of that, and people were crying, and I was not crying. Even at his funeral, people were crying and I was not crying. I was actually singing, and people didn't even know that I could sing, and I was singing. And when they said the family must come and, sing and all those type of things at the gravesite, I went and I sang to, the best of my abilities. And then 2 weeks later, I think that is when I started crying, because there had been a fight between me knowing that my father was going to pass away on that time, and also me saying I have to cry and I have to feel the pain and I have to do that. So after 2 weeks, I broke down into tears, and that was it. And I continued like that. And one thing that I know is that I sense my father, which is another part of what I'm speaking about in the book, that a lot of the times we know that the people that were our parents or our loved ones who passed away, we know we can feel their presence, but because of religion, beliefs, and culture, we dismiss those type of things by saying no. We don't worship our ancestors, we don't do all of these things. But immediately after my dad passed away, which is something that I know for sure that my family does, is that when somebody passes away, both from my mom and my father's side, I'll dream about them, and they will show me a sign that they have crossed over to, I don't know, I've never been to the other side, but there is just that inner knowing that they have crossed over to the other side. And from there, I would know that they are safe, and then they would start now becoming a part of me. I would feel their presence. Sometimes when I am battling with something and I need maybe a clarity on something, they would come maybe in a dream. Maybe I will feel their presence. And I remember there was something just immediately after my dad passed away, I think about 3 months something, there was a shift in what now we are believing in. And you know, we are different as family, but I don't want to get much deeper into that. And I didn't want to be involved. I'm one person who does not want to get involved in changing what other people believe about death. And again, other people would be mourning, and during the mourning and the grieving period, they would start maybe doing things that maybe would bring them closer to the person who passed away. And I remember my father coming in the dream, and he was so angry, so extremely angry, that I had to intervene in what was happening at home, and it eventually stopped, right? So that was it. And I know that my father, and I talk about this a lot, that when people die, they are not ancestors. A person who dies today is not an ancestor. There's a process of becoming an ancestor, and I expand a lot on my book called Guided, which there's a pre-order of the book. You can pre-order the book because that book is more spiritually, it's a spiritual guide for people to understand exactly what is happening in the spiritual places. I do talk about trauma, but it's not like the other books that I have written before, right? So I know that my father right now is a messenger, and he is in his process of becoming an ancestor, and it's not going to happen right now. And fast forward to 3 years later, my sister's child passed away. He was 14 years of age at the time. And again, when he passed away, I think about 7 days before he passed away, I start feeling the rage inside of me. I just didn't know he was going to pass away. Most of the time when we speak as siblings, we don't speak about, hey, the child is sick or whatever. And again, even if he was sick, he was not sick to the point where we could say this person was going to pass away, right? So 2020, after that COVID thing, I'm so glad that at least my family is safe. There's no one who passed away, and little did I know that on Christmas Day we were going to be busy organizing a funeral of my nephew. So my nephew passed away, and 7 days before he passed away, I feel the rage inside of me. I've explained even also in the book that there was a point when I had so much rage towards my husband, and I thought I want a divorce. I didn't know what was that, where was it coming from. And ka Setswana, most of the time people say kikung, that when a person is about to pass away, there are things that would happen that would make you angry and all of those type of things. But for me, it was different. It was more like it was a guide to something that I didn't understand. And I remember I was forcing my husband at the time. I knew how to drive, but our first born son was still young. He was born in 2019, and I didn't want to drive alone to Mafikeng. My husband didn't want us to leave on Monday. I was adamant we have to leave on Monday, and my husband was like, no, we're not going to leave on Monday because I'm busy with something else. We're going to leave on Tuesday. And on Tuesday we got so tired. I went to the mall. I had things that I wanted to buy, and then I came back. I found them sleeping with our firstborn son, and I also slept, and we overslept. And I got a call around 6 while I was sleeping that Tshireletso has passed away, which is my eldest sister's son. And when my mom was telling me that, it was as if that rage that was in me, there was something that was here. So when my mom said, hey, I'm going to, it was saying Tshireletso has passed away, it was as if something was going from here and going down, like sinking down. Now I'm no longer having that thing. So instead of focusing on Tshireletso has passed away, I focused on this thing now. What is this, right? And again, after a few minutes, I called my mom again and I was like, what did you just say? And yeah. And Cyril's death had opened up a lot for me, especially in the spirit. It happened for a purpose that I had felt like that, because from that time after his death, I just started now and wanting to understand, why did I feel that certain way. For me, it was not kung, as Batswana would say. It was just a spiritual elevation to something else. And I thank God for that moment, even though I don't thank God. I don't want to say I'm thanking God that he passed away. I don't know. But for that moment, that it was the beginning of my other spiritual awakening. Then 2025, my sister started acting up. You know, there was just a lot that were happening before she could pass away. In March of 2025, I sent a message on the group and I tell my other siblings, we had another group where we were like, hey, let's talk, because my sister had a lot of things that I cannot speak about publicly. And we then had this other group where we were speaking. And I said to them in March, the 25th of March, 2025, that I think my eldest sister is about to pass away. And I need you guys to make sure that your policies and everything are in place. And I know when you grow up with people, when you were just a drunkard, when you were just a nobody, and especially because I'm the last born of the girls, people don't just take you seriously. How do you know these things, you know? And eventually, my sister passed away in December of 2025. So it took about 9 months for that to come into fruition. And you might ask, how do I know those things? And I don't know how do I know those things, but I know when a person is about to die. I can see their actions. I can see a whole lot of things, especially when a person is about to die. Even the ending of something. I've seen people's marriages ending before they could even publicly come on social media and say, I have went through a divorce. And not that I go to people and say, hey, they haven't posted each other and all that. But just by looking at you, your spirit would tell me what you are not saying. That is the reason why it's so difficult for you, for anybody, to lie to me, because when you are speaking to me or when you are speaking, I can hear what you are not saying. It's all in my book. You'll understand. So my sister passed away, but before she passed away, we figured out that she was sick and she had closed her doors for us not to intervene with that, not to try to help her. I think she was just like, you know what, peace out, I want to go, right? And I remember I had a conversation with God and I said, she was still sick at the time, and I had a conversation with God asking God, why is my sister struggling so much in life? Because most of the things that I have known about her has been connected to struggle. And God said to me that at this point, well, told me a lot of things that were revealed that people didn't know and that my sister couldn't tell us, but I found those things out because of being spiritually inclined, because of understanding how to speak to God. And I always say I speak to God as a friend would speak to a friend, right? So my God then told me that my sister had two options at the time, that she would either have to forgive, and that's a story for another day, and or it could be the end of life, because when there's the end of life, it's the end of this lifetime, everything, every suffering, every pain, and she will have to choose. And unfortunately, we cannot choose for her. And my sister, she chose to die. She chose to go from this realm to another one, because I mean, we have different realms. It doesn't mean that when a person passes away, it's the end of life. Yes, here on earth, but in the spiritual place, they maneuver through a lot of realms and, you know, spiritual awakenings and all that. So again, I am not feeling the feelings that I should be feeling when somebody that you love passes away. And I now start labeling myself to say, maybe you are not compassionate, maybe you are not this, maybe you are not that. But then as I was reading my book again, because I'm about to launch this book, and I realized that I know these things. I can communicate with the spiritual places, and I know these things, and I know that death is not what it looks like in the physical. And now I understand myself even better. I understand that I understand the spiritual world. And it's hard for me to say to a person who's grieving, and maybe they do understand the spiritual place even better than me, but they are grieving in their own way, to saying, do you understand what has just happened? Do you understand that this is not just the end of life? Yes, the end of life on earth, but it's not the end of life in another realm and another spiritual place, right? I remember having to talk to this other person, and I said that, and I had to retract my statement. I think I had commented on some other person's post, and they are going through grief, and, you know, recklessly, me being me, I just said something along those lines, and I could feel and sense that that person thought, maybe you don't understand what I'm saying, you know, because when people are grieving, they are grieving a love that they cannot give to that person that they truly and honestly loved, right? And then there is me, who understands the spiritual place, who understand death, who understand, I mean, in my book, I speak about how I can even communicate with people who have passed away, you know. And it has been a taboo thing, because, you know, you grew up in Christianity, and you are taught that a person passes away, you don't even have any interaction with that person. There's absolutely no way that you can know or say anything to that person. And then you know yourself that you can actually communicate with that person. And how do I know that? When my nephew passed away, I also found out what happened, because also the thing that was not sitting right with me was the fact that he had passed away, and he was not even sick, you know, he was not older like my dad. Why did you pass away? And one day I just stood just like how I am, not putting a white duke, not lighting a candle, not all of these things that people usually say that you must do in order for you to be in the spiritual places, not even fasting. I then speak, and I say to him, I ask him, and he answers me. And if, you know, I get deeper into it, it will take away the book, but eventually we got to understand as a family what transpired with his death. Just like my sister, before she could pass away, I got into the spirit. I love to say I dive into the spirit, and I get this knowledge. But at least at the time, my sister had not passed away. So I drove to Mafike. If you guys remember, on the 28th of November, I went home. I just went alone so that I can go and ask her, why didn't you tell us this thing? Because I got the whole file from the spiritual place. And she said to me, it was not easy for her to say that. So for me, grief had been differently, because I understand the spirit. And I'm not saying I'm better than another person. Please hear me out. I'm not talking about being better. I'm talking about understanding the spiritual places, and eventually understanding what is happening outside of outside of earth, right? And it had given me a sense of, it's more like a person saying, I've gotten a job in Cape Town, and I'm going to work as a manager. I'm moving from being paid 30,000 to now being paid 50,000. That is what it is happening to me. Does it mean that I don't miss the person if they pass away? I do miss them. Does it mean that I don't sometimes ask myself, why couldn't I be there for my sister, especially with all that I've heard about her before she could pass away? I wish I had, but I just don't have a feeling that says it's a feeling of grief. It's a feeling that or maybe not of grief or of regret, because some people are not literally grieving, they are just regretting that, why couldn't I be there for you, why didn't I support you, and all that. The guilt that comes with that I do not have, because I understand that they have crossed over. And this world, even though it's nice to be in the body, but it's also nice to be in the spirit and be in the form that you are truly created for. So with this video, I am making it for people who have felt like maybe you are not compassionate enough, maybe you don't understand, or maybe there are certain things that are happening to you while people are dying, or while they are about to die, or maybe you know when people are about to die, but you don't know what exactly is happening, who have taught you that. In my book Guided, I speak a lot and I expand a lot about the spirit, how God speaks to us through feelings, how even we know that there's a presence of angels, presence of your loved ones. You can feel them, you can see them in the dream. And because in the church we have mainly been taught that when you do that, you when you see people in the dream is demons, and maybe demons. I'm not talking about demons. I'm speaking about you seeing your father in the dream, and your father literally giving you, or a loved one giving you information about something that you are struggling with, without even having to demonize it, or maybe they are coming with horns or anything, but just giving you clarity on something that you need. Because most of the our past loved ones have transitioned from being human beings to now being messengers to their loved ones, right? So I speak in depth about this, about spirituality, and I hope that the book, as it is guided, it will help you understand your spiritual gift and also find your purpose as a healer, as a prophet, whoever that you are. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.